I almost did a video on Sonic Frontiers today. Don't get me wrong, I still kind of want to because it's kind of a fun game and I wouldn't mind talking about video games on this channel because why not? But I am so glad I decided to watch Werewolf by Night instead because I have just a few thoughts. This movie should not have been as good as it was. The MCU needs more movies like this. I've talked about a little bit in the past how I like when directors like genre bend, and I guess technically they kind of did that here. But I guess what I'm trying to say is they could have just had your standard paint by numbers, run of the mill superhero story. But instead, they were like, you know what? Blade's coming out. Maybe we should introduce the audience to monsters being in the MCU. And they did that. They did that in a really great way. I think my favorite thing about this movie was like the technical aspects of the film, if I'm being completely honest. They shot it to make it look like it was shot in the 1930s, like a B horror movie, which this is what it was trying to emulate. Literally, like the werewolf costume looked directly out of those old movies with werewolves. I haven't really seen them, but I know what they look like, and this was a clear homage to those movies. And I love the fact that most of this movie, it seems like they did practical effects. The best moment was the transformation scene when Jack was turning into the werewolf. They didn't like show him turning into the werewolf, but what they did was they focused on Elsa's reaction, and in the background, every time lightning would flash, you would see him like kind of rile, like a shadow. The shadow of him was transforming, and that was so cool. Like they could have like shown him transforming. It probably would have been fine, but it probably would have been super CGI. It wouldn't have been as good. But yeah, they just went for it. The movie was in black and white, which was great. The only time it was in color was at the very end of the movie, but also the Bloodstone was always red. And that was kind of a good way of telling you that this was part of the MCU, because it was the exact same red as Wanda's magic. And like clearly, like they used that red on purpose to like not foreshadow, but like show that it is part of the MCU. And it was great. And honestly, I guess I should talk a little bit about the movie itself. But before that, I need to talk about the score. Halfway through the movie, I was like, oh my God, this score slaps. Color me surprised when I find out that not only is the movie directed by Michael Giacchino, but it was also scored by him. The name might sound familiar. If it doesn't, well, let me just ring off a couple things you might have heard of. He scored the entirety of Lost. He scored the Batman from just this year, that was my favorite thing about the Batman, honestly, was the score. And he also scored The Incredibles, which that music is just iconic now. So yeah, of course they're going to choose a stylistic composer to direct the most stylistic film in the MCU. He did a great job. And I think another thing I really liked about it was it was only 50 minutes. It wasn't a really long time. They didn't waste any time getting you right into the meat of this movie. They knew what story they wanted to tell, they knew how they wanted to tell it, and they just went for it. You didn't really need any introductions of the characters. It kind of did enough by showing you who they were, with like as little dialogue as they needed. This is definitely a show don't tell type of movie, which is what we need more of. Man, okay, I really liked this movie. This was also a nice step into showing some more mature aspects, I guess, of the MCU. Because up until now, it's always been like super kid friendly. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but like they know they need to like make it, as kid friendly as possible because you don't want to get an R rating. But I think that this coming out on just Disney Plus really helped it, because let me tell you, there were some brutal, and I mean brutal, deaths in this movie. Like they literally showed somebody get beheaded and have the head like roll towards the camera. They're not going to do that in any of the movies they've done recently. No way would that end up in a film. So the fact that like they were willing to do that was just it showed like the respect that they have for the audience, and they're not gonna just try and like make it a PG-13 rating. It was just so cool to see. And then as I was kind of researching this movie, I also found out that like one of the fight scenes that happened, it was like almost 2 minutes of just a straight shot. There were no cuts. They just like choreographed like 2 minutes worth of action. And I actually that was a little bit of a downer, not downer, but like I was watching and I was like, it kind of looks like some of these people are just kind of standing there waiting for their turn. But then I learned that's because it was all uncut. And honestly, that's probably how they used to do stuff like this back in the day. So I'm just looking at it as another homage to those like movies from the 30s. I think Werewolf in London. Werewolves in London was the movie that I think they took the look of the werewolf from. I'm also surprised they showed restraint and not playing the song Werewolves in London. It's just kind of funny because I actually was listening to that song before I watched this movie, expecting it to be in there, and it definitely wasn't. And I actually really liked the ending of the movie. It started playing Judy Garland singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow as the entire like world came into color. And it was just fun, man. This movie was fun. This just reminded me of when the MCU was fun and not just like bad fun, if that makes sense. Honestly, I think this is just a step in the right direction. They need to do more of this. They need to like trust their directors more to just make movies they want to make. Like it just reminds me of Ant-Man. Like they had Edgar Wright originally directing that movie. I would love to see his vision on this movie, but that's not going to happen. Maybe we'll get Edgar Wright to direct one of these like 50-minute features. And that's another thing. As much as I would have loved to see this movie in the theater, they probably would have wanted to made it a feature-length film, obviously. And they probably would have added too much to it and it wouldn't have been as good. So I guess you gotta take the good with the bad. Maybe one of these days we'll see this movie in the theater where I feel like the director wanted it to be. That's just the vibe I got. But I don't know. Man, that just got me excited for the MCU. Like maybe the future, my future with the MCU is gonna be watching these little shorts they come out with. Because that was good. That was really good. It was a topper to my night. And I'm about to go to trivia. That's going to be fun too. But this is probably the best thing I've done tonight. All right, well, those were just a few of my thoughts. What are yours? Bye.